don't know, if that would be the option or not, but it's an easy option.
If our principal is putting forward the first plan, and I think that's been considered.
I'd go along with that too, Karen. I mean, I think it makes the most sense as long as we have enough green space for the kids to play. But
Yeah.
the other issue is I really think you're gonna have a hard time getting approval from the HTC
I do
for
too.
that.
I think either option we're going to have a hard time, but
Well-
we have to consider, and I think when we frame our proposal to them, we have to consider the public safety issue. This is, I mean, it's, to me, this is entirely about public safety and our obligation as a school committee to provide a safe environment for our kids to be nurtured and learn in. And parking is just an added thing that, it seems like a affectation, but it's not. This is about making sure the school's functional.
I guess the
And
other,
it's not functioning when we don't have enough parking for even our teachers.
the other issue is if we had so much blacktop there, I'm not nearly an expert on this, but obviously that impacts drainage, waste, stormwater runoff, etc. That could be another issue because that would be a heavily blacktopped area. And maybe we could use, could you put a crushed stone lot in there? I know I don't like
And I agree
those,
with
but
Karen. It looks pretty nice the way it's done, and you'd want a continuation of that,
I think it could be done tastefully. I think we need to go in with some potential design options because if we go in and say we want to put 40 parking spaces in, that's a no-go.
right.
Because the district wants to preserve that space and that's their role, but our role is equally important and we need to come up with a compromise.
Al, do you have a recommendation on it?
In behalf of the principal, I have to support his view here. He is dealing on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis, problems with parking. He's come to Kathy and me and suggested that this is the time to do something about it. So, the most practical solution
Right.
is
I-
option A, but I sure know that it's going to be a challenge to get through.
But I think that's the most practical way to go. If we can, get
Sorry,
it.
sorry. We were chatting.
So what do we need to do tonight? Is the best thing to vote to put a placeholder on for Batchelder parking and then
Yeah. Then
have
refine it a little bit, and get
refine
input
it.
from the HDC.
I think that's what, I don't think we should commit to any specific
Well,
plan
I don't
tonight.
think we need to make this is just a discussion and review, right?
Right.
So, we just, and again, I know we've all discussed this, it sounds like neither option is that great, but the need is important to the majority on a consensus level. And that it sounds like the administration is not giving a specific recommendation, is that right? Is that, well, Carl has given a recommendation.
Well, with the principal, yeah.
And we do need to, there's a deadline for getting an item on,
Right.
Right.
and it's tomorrow.
Right, so
Okay,
as I
so
said,
then
we
there is
could
action
vote to
needed,
put a
so-
placeholder on.
Yeah.
Right, you can vote to put a
And get more
placeholder.
for a large cap item for the Batchel School parking. And we can take a vote on that after, because I think I wanna also discuss the other item, which is becoming bigger by the day, and I actually had
The
a
retaining
conversation
wall?
with Carl on it today, yeah. I'll let Carl take that from here.
Thank you. So that really is the only, what I would call, exclusive school recommendation, the parking lot. The second one, I call really a townwide recommendation. We'll see how that plays out, but it's important that, we're talking now about the retaining wall at the little school softball fields. It's interesting, we had a discussion this morning, and I think it does have some value here in understanding the context and the history of that area. In 1997, when the little school was renovated and expanded, the group of active softball parents approached the Parks and Recreation Department about consolidating the town's softball fields in one area and making significant improvements to them. Because that was before anyone at this table was working here, but this is the history that I've been able to reassemble. So, the Parks and Recreation, under the guidance and management of the then Parks and Recs director, worked on an informal basis with a coalition of parents to make the improvements that you see now at the little school. The school department blessed it and was very pleased to receive the outcomes that this group very effectively and very entrepreneurially put together. So what they did was they changed what was a slope from the present parking lot. Well, it literally, in those days, was a slope down to the field. And what they did was, along the 300-foot border of the 3 present softball fields, they put in a retaining wall. The retaining wall goes anywhere from 3 or 4 feet high to 7 feet high, and that replaced the slope that had been there from time immemorial. Now, that was 1997. At the same time, the Parks and Rec Department built a snack shack there, which serves as centerpiece to that area, put in 2 sets of bleachers, several sets of stairs, granite stairs, very nice plantings and landscaping.
Netting around.
That's right, netting, nice dugouts, netting. It's a very, very attractive facility, and I think appropriately well prized by the softball community. So here we are now with a couple of these walls buckling, and again, this work had been done in a way that unfortunately does not seem to be permanent. The building inspector has required that we rope off some of these areas because of his concern. You would not want to be standing or sitting in the bleachers behind a 7-foot retaining wall should that cave in. That would be a dangerous situation. And with heavy rains or with another freeze-thaw cycle this winter, it's unclear what the impact of this present condition is. So we're faced with that as the situation. No money has been spent yet to try to quantify how to do this, nor has a decision been made on who is the facilitator of this process. Given the fact that this was developed originally by the Parks and Recs Department and is used primarily by the Parks and Rec Department, they need to have a seat at the table. If not, be the primary facilitator of the future plan here. What I can say to you is we have twisted the arms of several landscape architects, including the ones that's serving us under the Doran Whittier proposal, and we have received back of the envelope informal cost estimates that range as a low of $150,000 for a full solution to a high of over $300,000 for a solution here, to do this in a way that fulfills handicapped access, ramps, the proper tiebacks for this wall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
We reconsider our vote on the softball complex of the high school.
So that is the report. And so what I've done here is, under the large capital requests, town-wide, noted, and on July 2nd, I put a figure of $100,000 plus. Since that time, we have the back of the envelope numbers that are in excess of that. I'm not sure what direction the school committee can give us. This is also on the agenda tomorrow morning at the finance planning team.
Just so I can add, I spoke to Carl this morning. This would cost us some money, and maybe it's some money that we split with the town. I think we ought to pay somebody to come in and give us a number of options from the cheapest way to fix this. You know, maybe it's as I don't know anything about landscape, obviously, or anything like that, or construction, but maybe it's as putting more soil in and it becomes more of a slope. You don't have to put a retaining wall in, to the $300,000 plus option. And I think that's the direction we really have to get a fix on. What are the real options to fix this? Because we're as Carl said, we're twisting some people's arms to give us an estimate, but it's not an official estimate with architect stamped plans.
Is the entire wall compromised, Cal, or is there sections that would pass inspection you would not have to do right now?
The building inspector has roped off approximately 75 feet of it. He feel, and that's the person who has to answer that question, really, I think, because he's the one who approves access to it. The only thing he said beyond that, Jerry, is that at this stage he would require a less informal approach to the solution than had taken place 15 years ago, and he would require a stamped drawing by a landscape engineer to come in and assess it. So I'm not answering your question because that's been his most specific answer to that question at this
We
point.
don't even know if we'll be able to reuse the materials that are there presently, right?
You know, I think that that's unlikely. What you see there, I want to call, for lack of a better term, Home Depot
Pavers.
Right.
pavers with pins on them.
Yeah.
Those don't have structural integrity. I think the next phase would either be you build forms and you pour concrete in, or you do something far more permanent.
I favor Mel's approach because I think we need more information. I think it's great that we have some sort of backdoor estimates, but I think it's important for us to get a professional in who can give us some options, including whether we have a phased approach of
Right.
going through this, because it is expensive. That's a large expenditure that I don't know I'm prepared to put on this list, but we need to do it. It's a safety hazard.
And the issue we have right now is,
Springtime.
what about,
Yes.
but what about for kids at the little school? I mean, that area may have to be just completely off limits to the little school. I mean, I wouldn't want to see any kids playing in that area.
No, there's caution tape that's
Right.
all across it now.
We may have to erect more permanent barriers to restrict access.
Yeah, I would say so.
Cliff?
They do have a play structure for recess.
Right.
And then they play on the back of the large field.
Right.
The third field, when they're out to recess. So they're not accessing
Because
dugouts.
We're gonna need that facility in the spring.
Yes, we are.
They're roped off so that the access is constrained at this point, to the extent that people understand what the rope off
Right.
means. I did visit the area, and the walls don't appear to me to be at incipient failure mode, but they are on the way, and they could be accelerated, as Carla
Castle,
said.
one of those downpours.
You get 3 or 4 or 5 inches of rain behind there a couple of times in a row, and then the world changes.
Right.
We don't know what's behind that as far as soil types and so forth. The other thing that has been mentioned by the folks we've twisted the arms of is related to code issues. And those code issues are instantly in play
Right.
as we go to fix that.
I know there's limited or no handicap access.
There's none.
The bleachers you have to have some bleacher seats with backs on
Right.
them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues we'd have to address in addition to the wall.
And if you put the wall in, it has to have a wall behind it so that you can't fall over the top of it.
Right.
Not only that the wall doesn't tip over, but
Right.
that people don't go over the wall. That can be achieved with fencing,
Right.
which is less expensive, but you might want the weight just to help hold the wall in place. So there's a variety of ways of dealing with that. It would seem to me that we ought to be going for a professional to come up with plans and specifications for doing it and do it the right way. All it takes is one incident,
Right.
and we've bought the whole thing and we don't own it.
Correct. I think that's the way we ought to go. I'm guessing, though, that this is something, and we have finance planning team tomorrow, we'll have to have a placeholder for this item also, whether it's a town item or a school item.
To at least get an engineer in there. Or
We
That's
have-
all it's saying.
some
Right,
type
but I'm
of a-
saying if we don't put it on now for approval in October, then we won't have the money
No.
until next year to do it.
Right.
So I think we have to put it on for whatever, up to X 100,000 or whatever, and hopefully by October, we'd have, if we do hire a professional,
Engineer or
an engineer to come in and look at it, we'll have a better idea of how much it's going to cost, a more exact idea.
Do we have funds to hire a professional to tell us between now and October?
Yes.
I mean, limited, but,
School funds.
right. I mean, I think maybe up to $10,000, which it may cost to get somebody in here, correct? To,
Yes.
And my concern is the timing, because I'm thinking about the softball program next spring, and how long does this kind of construction take? If we get approval in October, the winter is right around the corner. I'm not quite sure how long it takes to build that kind of a retaining wall. And
Depends, if we have a winter like we just had,
Right.
you
It's
could
not an
build it
issue.
anytime at all.
True,
Oh,
true.
It's 300 feet, right, Carl?
If they have to go the whole length, yes.